Last winter, Huy and I, we had a battle. Who could take better Airbnb photos? You see, Huy here is a professional photographer. He's got great gear, years of experience, he knows what he's doing, and I'm a do-it-yourself guy who likes to learn everything on his own, and I've got some gear too. Of course, in all my confidence, I challenged him to see who on the back end could take better photos of my unicorn house, and this is video 2 to let you know who won and how they won with the photos they took. Let's jump in. Welcome back, Airbnb family. You should remember Huy from the last video where we took photos of the unicorn house. Such a cool place. I need to lead with some bad news. Actually, our unicorn house was murdered, stabbed to death by the downstairs neighbor, making some they're kind of crazy complaints. But I guess it's the nature of things. If you make a house that's unicorn themed, people are going to behave in unicorn ways. And we, of course, wanted children's birthday parties, but of course, we also got a lot of bachelorette parties. And so things did get loud into the evenings, and the downstairs neighbor was not happy. So tip, if you're gonna do something like my unicorn house concept, make it a standalone home, all right? But the photos live on, and thus we can still continue to do this video, and our memory's pretty sharp. We can recall this, because I mean, it was less than a year ago. And Huy has a kind of a standard way that he likes to do a lot of his real estate photography. So he's going to tell you kind of like how he shot the stuff that he shot. I'll tell you what I did and why our results are different. So first, let's show you photo reel A, person A's photos. Next, let's show you photo reel B, photos from person B. When we showed these photos to multiple people to ask which ones were more attractive or more bookable, person A, Huy, won the battle. And there are a couple good reasons why. And the reasons for what makes good photography, some of them are myths. And so this is kind of why I think this video is important. And one of the biggest myths about why the photos were better is it the quality of the gear? My photo camera is probably about a $1,500 camera. His was probably over $2,000. He probably spent a little bit more money on his glass, which is the lens. But I'll let Huy kind of take that away on whether it's the gear.
Personally, I believe that it's more about the photographer and their knowledge rather than the gear they use. That being said, what I did use in this particular setup was the Sony a7 III with a 16 to 35 G Master lens, which I personally think is overpriced for what you get. It's a really good glass, don't get me wrong, but you can get the same results for half the quality. That setup probably costs about $2,000. You know, you add a tripod in there, another 100 or two, and that's all you need. But if you wanted to go budget on this, you could get either a full frame camera or a crop sensor camera. If you get a crop sensor camera, those lenses will be much cheaper, and you could still get wide angle lenses for them at a fraction of the cost compared to a full frame. And then if you got a full frame camera, obviously that's gonna be more expensive, and the lenses for that will be more expensive as well. But since that shoot, I've switched my real estate wide angle lens from the 16 to 35 to a 10 to 18, which costs $800 compared to a $2,000 lens.
And I use what's called a micro 4/3 sensor. So he talked about full frame, crop, then there's micro 4/3, which is smaller. Since we're using these photos mostly for Airbnb, mostly for computers and social media, using a micro 4/3 sensor isn't necessarily bad because you still get enough pixels to display photos in 4K or better. And really, on a computer, looking at like properties, that's probably good enough. So if you do micro 4/3 or crop sensors, I'm assuming the glass is also cheaper, because I know my Panasonic cameras, my glass is way cheaper than Canon glass typically, because that's full frame. And that's a good way to save money. Now, I had a hunch as to why my photos didn't come out as good, and there's two reasons I could validate. The first one is we do use different software to finish our shots. Now, to kind of go into the basics of what we did, like how you get a shot this quality in this ballpark, you need to do something called bracketing, which is where you shoot multiple photos that are identical, except you use different levels of light or different levels of exposure. So I'll take a photo that's a little dark, I'll take a photo that's normal, and then I'll take a photo that's a little bright, and then I try to get them meshed together, and that's called a high dynamic range photo. There are other metrics like f-stops and stuff that I don't want to bomb you with because it may not be relevant. But basically, we were doing bracketing shots and we need to mesh those photos together. And I use Adobe Suites for my editing, for my audio, for everything. So I was using an Adobe product to do the high dynamic range, like photo merging. And
I use a program called Photomatics.
And so I've never used Photomatics, but his stuff always comes out the bomb. That could be one of the reasons why. But in addition, I have less of a difference in the amount of light change for my, I take 3 photos. I take one normal photo and then I take one that's a little bit darker and one that's a little bit brighter. But when he takes his photos, he takes a normal photo, then he takes one that's like way darker and one that's like way brighter. For those of you who know the difference, I'm doing a 3-shot bracket at single f-stops of exposure, and you're doing a 3-shot bracket at 3 f-stops of exposure, right? So that gives him, like, let's say your f-stop of like 4, 7, and 11, right? Would be yours, and mine would be like 5 or like 6, 7, and 8. So he's getting so much more dynamic range for those of you who know anything about f-stops. And because of that, he's able to get that cleaner, I think that's how he's able to get that cleaner photo, where some of mine, you'll see that there's like shadows in the room, where he got the same photo without any weird shadow colors. So, but he was able to stay, like, otherwise still preserve the same quality. I think we generally cropped our photos the same, right? We also, a lot of things that we did in common is like what part of the room we shot from. A lot of our photos have the similar angle because that's one of the basics. When shooting real estate photography, you want to shoot across the room. And he talks a lot about what he did in that past video. So if I were you, I'd go watch that video again, or watch it if you're new to this channel and you missed it. Now, Huy does freelance real estate. He does freelance photography for other things. I mean, like I've always seen him like doing like Uber Eats like photos. He gets to eat a lot for free, which is super tight. And he lives in Philly. So I would follow him on Instagram. He's got a couple. Do you prefer the HD Edits official or Huy?
My personal one, I think I post more on. The HD Edits is for my portrait work.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna, obviously you can see it right now, his Instagram. And if you need a guy in Philadelphia with a camera, this is your boy. He's super good, obviously. So we're gonna get back to Tulum. We're having a good time. He's a big fan of Sam Kolder. We're at Habitas where he was staying. We tried to find him. I think we missed him, but we're gonna get back to playtime, and I'll see you on the other side.